What's going on, everybody? Jacob Snow here. Just gonna make sure we got the recording actually started, and we do. It's underway. I am joined today by Shal and Iron Peregrine of the Legends of Albadyn dev team for episode 8 of the Dragon Ridge cast. Discord's camera system is being a little spotty today, so we're doing a profile pic chat. So feel free to browse the internet while you listen to us talk about the many different things that we've got in plan for today.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's visuals today. This is my first time here. Iron, as mentioned earlier. Nice to meet you all.
This is true.
Know me as Shal.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's on the docket first, Jake?
Alright, so the first thing that we were going to talk about today was what Bethesda's been up to lately.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, we're gonna start off with a bang. Bethesda's mixed bag of offerings continues to grow as the announcement of Elder Scrolls 6's exclusivity on Xbox and PC is
Everywhere but
waves.
PlayStation.
Making waves, to say the least.
Ooh, it's got me heated.
I mean, they I don't know, man. I don't know how to feel about it. Because, like...
I don't know about y'all, but after showing loyalty to Skyrim for almost 10 years now,
Actually, 10
which
years
I've been
now.
I've been playing the game since it came out. It, excuse my language, but it pisses me off to hear about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean... The fact that it is pretty much exclusively not PlayStation. I mean, Nintendo's left in the cold as well, but...
Well, then no one likes Nintendo anyway, it's fine.
I want
Nintendo?
I want Nintendo, I just can't afford it. But,
I don't.
No friendo.
But, this is like... Because the 10th anniversary edition for Skyrim does seem to be going over pretty well.
Apart from the fact that apparently there is a bug where if you install all of them at the one point, it will crash the system and you can't install mods, but that is beyond the point.
Well, actually, no, that's not beyond the point. That's rather on point of where I'm going with this. Fallout 76 has shaped up rather nicely, at least from what I've heard.
It has. It's a lot better than it was on release. I can agree with that.
But the thing is with Bethesda is this is kind of a repetition of a pattern, but it deviates in one substantial way. Bethesda consistently rushes their games out the gate, which leads to them being a glitchy, buggy mess. It was true for Morrowind, it was true for Oblivion, true for Elder Scrolls Online, true for Fallout 76, Fallout 4, and Skyrim. I mean, pretty much everything that they've released has been suboptimal at best on release, and you've got patches out the ass, and now they're locking PlayStation out for...
This is a huge portion of their player base anyway. I'd like to put out Skyrim and Fallout 4's bugs made the game cool. They were funny, you know.
They made
funny
the game
bugs.
comical, not cool. There's a very distinct difference.
That's what I meant. And the fact that you can see a dragon spaz out and then you turn it to a cheese wheel, you can't do that in other games.
Oh, 100%. It's...
But then ESO and Fallout 76, you have to make the game perfect when it's an online system, not just a single player big world open world game. That's why the bugs are more or less angering
for the single players.
Angering during Skyrim and Fallout 4, but they were so hated during the online sessions because it's a cyberpunk thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's really what it comes down to, is like, if it was a smaller studio, like Hi-Rez or something like that, a lot of this could be ignored.
Exactly.
Because it's not like an industry giant.
And since Skyrim made Bethesda big, in my eyes at least, it's why people walked over the, like, just didn't mind the bugs, because it was, in their eyes, the first big release game they've made in a while, apart from Fallout 3.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing that's kind of amusing about the situation to me is that I'm ambivalent. Like, Oblivion was the last game that Bethesda made that I personally enjoyed.
You didn't like Skyrim?
I had mad respect for Skyrim. I respect Skyrim like mad. I respect its legacy and its place in the market. But with that being said, it was not a game that I personally enjoyed. Like,
Respectable.
it was fun to a point, right until around I hit level 30, and then it was just like, ugh.
See, that's why mods are so liked about the game, because I run one, used to run one, that fixed that problem, where Bandit Marauders would not spawn till you were leveled with them.
Well,
Because Bandit Marauders spawn with almost 500 fucking health.
yeah.
You don't get those stats till level 60.
Yeah. But I mean, there is an honest question to be asked, though. Are mods one of the reasons that Elder Scrolls is moving to the mod-friendly platforms? Because, I mean, it's common knowledge that Xbox and PC are way more friendly to modders than PlayStation is.
Absolutely, that's exactly why, because PlayStation's actually, annoyingly enough, PlayStation's really stubborn about mods. You cannot bring external assets into the game through the creation engine. You can't do that. That's why the Creation Club had to be made, so the PS4 could have all the cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's why people that are used to mods don't like the CC, because it makes you pay for less quality stuff than you can find on the mod store or workshop. That's why I personally don't like the Creation Club, but I'm still going to buy stuff because I want cool stuff in my game, you know?
Yeah, which is, it's an unfortunate catch-22, really is.
It is. So, I haven't said anything yet, Iron. What's your opinion on this?
I'm not too sure, but if I do have any comment to make on it, it should probably be that PlayStation is notoriously difficult to translate games to. So it might be difficult. It's probably a logistical issue that they're not going there. For example, PlanetSide, one of my favorite games, it originally released to PC in 2012, and it took them 3 years to try to make a console version for PS4. And that goes for a lot of other games too. I'm pretty sure how it goes is PlayStation games actually speak a different language, so to speak, when it comes to PC or Xbox games, which are directly compatible. You can play a Xbox game with a keyboard and mouse, and vice versa with the controller. But you can't really do that with a PlayStation controller. Otherwise, we would see the same thing there.
That's true. There is a difference in
That is a very fair point.
Yeah, you're trying to put a square in a circle, you know?
I mean, I have heard also from, like, Game Informer and other online industry articles that Sony is notoriously difficult to work with. Like, almost at the level that Nintendo is.
Well, yes, because Sony, I believe, the way I see it, Sony sees himself as a big family platform, where Xbox is just...
Xbox knows their demographic
care.
and they've accepted it.
Yeah. PS4 has not, because you have to agree, there's a lot of kids on PS. There is. We've met them in For Honor and whatnot.
And a lot of older people as well. And I mean, while there are kids on Xbox, that's not what the market is targeted for.
Yeah, it's marketed towards, like, people in Iron's demographic or our demographic in general. Whereas PS is meant for the family group. It's meant for family. That's why you can run stuff like
Little
YouTube and stuff on it.
Readily comes to mind. I mean, PlayStation and Sony were always known for the kiddier games, if you will. There's not really a better way to say that. Like, games that were more appropriate for a younger demographic. Whereas with Xbox, like, really, if you look at the exclusives, it really says it all. I mean, you had Halo and Gears of War were the Xbox exclusives, and you had Little Big Planet and Destiny were some of the PlayStation exclusives. Granted, Destiny is timed exclusivity.
Gears of War.
Destiny was a PlayStation exclusive?
Yeah, Destiny 1 was a PlayStation exclusive.
It was
for a bit.
timed exclusive.
Huh.
And there was a bunch of maps and weapons that you couldn't get on Xbox.
Yeah, there was like a whole other strike you could get with Taken King, I think.
Oh yeah, and the Exodus Blue Crucible map was a PlayStation exclusive.
I think that's the actual strike as well. It's like Exodus Blue or something.
They made a strike
and that's
Exodus Blue? Yeesh.
I think. I don't know.
That doesn't
I don't
sound
remember.
enjoyable at all. I don't like fighting Guardians there. God forbid a boss. But like,
But yeah,
like I
that's
said,
why.
the exclusives really say it all about who they're targeting. Xbox was targeting more of a teenage to adult male demographic, um, and PlayStation
That's
was
why.
looking more for something for everybody because they saw what Nintendo pulled off with that.
Notice how you know all the memes about the Xbox Live parties. Notice Xbox Live parties. That says everything about Xbox. Right then and there.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, good point.
Because I've done a lot of stupid shit in Xbox Live parties that I wouldn't be able to pull off in PS parties. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. I actually I got to play Xbox Online for like 2 weeks back in 2008, and that was it. Cause I was a broke bitch at that time, and so I had a free trial, and that was all.
Mm.
And so, like, granted, I was told to kill myself in that time frame. Like,
Yes,
legit, I
that
played.
will very much
That's
happen.
Xbox, you know. Which was one of the reasons I enjoyed PlayStation more, because, yeah, there were toxic people, but they rarely hunted you down expressly to tell you stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, thank you ever so much, mate. It's exactly what I needed to boost my confidence.
Sounds about right. That's probably another reason why that kind of stuff doesn't like hurt me as much as other people because I came from that era. I played Xbox from around 2008 to 10 to 2015, which is when I got my PS4.
Yeah.
Xbox 360 was ground zero for all that stuff, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I played on the Xbox 360 for a long time.
Whereas for my part, I played on the Xbox 360 right up to the time when I went back to playing Halo Reach after the Xbox Live free trial paid out. I got like 30 waves in on a firefight endless before I lost. I only got 6 credits out of it. I'm like, what? They're like, well, you should keep Xbox Live. I'm like, the hell I will.
Yeah. That's another confusing thing. It's like, I feel like Xbox Live is more pushy about their live service than PS is. Yes, PS Plus gives you a bunch of free shit and whatnot, but Xbox is the same thing. For some reason, I feel like Xbox is more pushy about it. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but see, when you were playing on Xbox, I was playing on PS3, and I enjoyed all of my online benefits for free. PlayStation
Exactly.
Plus brought discounts and the occasional free game, but it was purely optional, and which is why when the PS4 was announced and they're like, PlayStation Plus is going to be required to play online, I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just super annoyed about that. It's like,
I'm still PS Plus is a lot more there's a lot more lenient than Xbox Live was because Xbox Live back when I played, you couldn't go on parties, you couldn't play online, you couldn't even like look at your friends list.
not with that. Yeah, I remember that. That was on 360. Learned
Yeah,
that
it
shit.
was.
Learned
Ugh.
that the hard way.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Iron, have you played on the Xbox? I'm curious.
I remember I tried an Xbox once to play Sea of Thieves while my cousin was over once.
Mm-hmm.
I never got into the features, so I can't say I have the basis to really know it, though.
I mean, that's fair. I mean,
Yeah, that's fair.
but like of the of the multiple console companies, PlayStation 3 is still my favorite. I don't have problems with PS4, but PS3 was still best boy.
I came from Xbox 360. It's still one of my favorites because mainly I got to play Gears of War.
Yeah. I
Clayton
mean,
Carmine, best boy.
oh god, my back hurts. I hate
But I
being
will say,
old.
after I own an Xbox One upstairs, after playing both, I prefer the PS4's feel and gameplay. Yes, I like the Xbox exclusives, but I don't like their controllers. I don't like their systems.
Yeah.
It's a weird phenomenon.
Well, that comes back to the architecture and everything, because PlayStation designed their controllers so anybody could play with it, whereas Xbox they looked at their demographics and went, well, 90% of them were men anyway. Of course, I don't think you ever got to hold a Duke, did you?
Doesn't sound familiar.
The Duke.
What?
The OG Xbox controller.
No, I didn't get to hold one of those, but I've seen those things.
Ah, that's what I grew up playing on.
I thought you said a dick for a second. I was like, wait, what?
No. That changes
I should be paying more
That's an
attention.
N64 controller.
Radically.
That's an N64 controller.
N64.
But no,
what are you telling me? The big middle thing isn't that?
Yeah, man, anything is if you're brave enough. But
Okay, bud. Okay.
it had to be said. Anyway, but no, those original Xbox controllers were something else. Because, like, if that was what you were used to, because I had a PS1 as my first console, and then we got an Xbox later on down the line. And, like, if you got used to the OG Xbox controller, it didn't feel weird. But what would happen was, we had a PS2, and so I would be playing PlayStation 2 and just vibing for like a week or two, because like I was just in the mood to play like Mortal Kombat or whatever. And so I'd just be playing that. And then I'd, you know what, I feel like playing Halo, and I'd grab the Xbox controller, and it would just feel so weird, because this thing is freaking huge. And not to mention tethered to the television.
Oh, I hated wired controllers.
Wired controllers were the worst, man.
Yeah, because you couldn't go like 5 feet without bringing the console with you.
Of course, that reminds me of my PS2 wireless controller. Oh my god. If it could go wrong, it did go wrong with that controller. We had sticking triggers, buttons popping out of the face buttons.
Dear Lord.
Buttons sticking with the face buttons. The little grip texture on the side falling off.
Jeez.
Yeah, that controller went through hell and back, and then went to hell again, and then finally was rest.
R.I.P. PS2 controller. We loved you.
Rest in
Until you fell
peace.
apart.
Oh, I loved my PS2 until I left it in Alabama.
Oof.
Yeah, it wasn't a decision I made willingly, and I'll leave it at that.
Understandable. Alright.
Of course, I had to sell my original Xbox. A fucking yard sale. That was the worst.
I bet.
That was the worst feeling in the world, man.
Top 10 saddest anime deaths.
Yeah. I think I made like $50 off of it in all its games.
That's not... Well, for a full console, that's...
For a yard sale,
but-
that's really good.
That's
For what
true.
it
I was
was
about to say,
worth?
for a yard sale.
Yeah, for somebody's pocket change, that's really good.
It was for
Somebody's
rent.
pocket.
That's what that was for.
Yeah.
The decisions we make to continue living.
Gotta love America.
Oh, I do. But,
Ah, yes, the American dream.
hey man, I got warmth, I got electricity, and I got the capability to keep it. That's all
That's
I
what it's
need.
all about.
Fair enough.
Alright, so the next thing we were going to talk about on the
I was about to
docket,
say, on
as
some
we
simpler
were
topics.
as we were mentioning top 10 saddest character deaths.
Boy.
Number 2, Red X and PS2.
Number 1, Red X Xbox.
Yep.
F. Never forgetty. Rest in spaghetti.
Why you gotta torment me like this, man? Alright,
Alright.
so...
I'm hinting you'll find it in the next bowl of spaghetti you eat.
God, I
Oh,
hope
Anyhow.
Jesus.
that would be a very rude awakening.
And now for the rest of Jake's life, he will never touch another bowl of spaghetti.
Oh, I will. It's just if it gets really crunchy, I'm gonna start crying because that means I've eaten my
yeah.
Xbox.
Yep.
Anyhow.
So-
On to some simpler topics.
We're talking about the execution and style of character deaths, both in RPGs and in other forms of media. Like, as an example, and this example is pretty close to the one that I found on Twitter that prompted this part of conversation. Halo Reach Cat.
I didn't like Kat anywhere. She couldn't drive.
That's not the point. What we're talking about is a cheap death good in certain circumstances, or is it always bad? And
certain circumstances. Okay.
is a cheap death always bad when it's a tabletop game?
What do you mean when it's in terms of tabletop game? Like in lore, the person dies, or in a game, or like a 40k game, and your main character gets sniped by a Chaos Soldier?
So the story was on Twitter was somebody's. They were a level 3 party, and after a combat, their party was taken captive, and the main villain delivered a tirade. And in a moment of television-esque bravado, the OP on Reddit, the original poster, spat at the villain like you would see in any number of fantasy action movies, and Star Wars as a valid example. And so the boss takes this personally, six his henchmen on the person, and they enter into 2 rounds of combat against a prone, bound target, and murder the character.
I mean, on one hand, you shouldn't have spat at the guy that's got you captive and is holding all the cards.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it. If you want a movie moment, you got to do something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I believe here. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's why I believe you need to have. Remember how when that one Albadyn session you ran like movie moments, or in that 40k game where you're like, let the Custodes tackle this Chaos Soldier.
Yeah.
Remember those moments we did? You need to have those for that kind of stuff.
Honestly, yeah, I do see the value in them. Don't get me wrong. I'm just making a joke about how that's kind of a stupid move.
Well, see, that's the thing. Is that was the take roughly 40% of the D&D community had as well. Based on the posts that I was seeing. I'm not saying 44% of all D&D players felt this way. I'm just saying based on the posts that I saw, roughly 1 in 4 posts was...
Out of that small group.
Roughly 1 in 4 posters was like, that person was a fucking idiot and they got what they deserved. But I want you guys to
consider, they did have it coming.
This was their first session.
Yeah,
they'd
that
never
much
played
hard
before. And the DM, for me, what upset me the most was the DM didn't warn them that this could happen. They didn't go, "Are you sure?" or anything like that. And then they had the audacity to say, "Man, that's a shame. I really liked your character too."
Wow.
Yeah, that actually changes things. Somebody's first character is their love and joy. Yeah. They spent all their time on the first character. Everybody else is a replacement.
Exactly.
And like a lot of people on Twitter were talking about there needed to be more communication if that was the type of campaign they were running.
Definitely.
Like that, that's the thing. A good DM, from what I've experienced, needs to have very good communication skills and needs to be very blunt with what they're doing. They can't go like, "Oh, I guess you can do it." Oh, you die instantly. You can't do that. I'd be the same as me taking like your Custodes and saying he trips on a rock and breaks his neck.
It's bullshit. I've actually heard about D&D sessions with that. They were, and this is years back. This was even before like 3rd edition D&D. The couple of characters were riding through the woods. The DM just had them roll, and the one who rolled lowest, a branch fell down and killed them instantly. And the DM was constantly
let the whole party.
The DM was constantly doing stuff like that. Like as another one of those examples, they trapped them in a marsh for like literally like 3 sessions just because one guy wouldn't leave.
Dude. Yeah, well that's just not being a good DM right there.
But the thing is,
abusive DM.
Yeah, I mean that's an actual problem, and one of my favorite takes I've ever seen on the subject is decisions have consequences is the DM's version of it's what my character would do.
Oh yeah.
Because you pretty much never hear it's what my character would do in a positive context.
Yeah.
It's always like, I'm going to try to...
I burned down the village.
I'm going to mug the priest or something equally detestable. It's like, come on, man. That's what my character would do.
Jeremy, you killed 3 children.
It's what my character would do. I'm just getting in character.
You are literally eating a child's brain right now.
Then at that
He
point,
doesn't deserve it. He can't think anyway.
at that point, it just launches into PvP because it's what my character would do, and the DM just has a nervous breakdown. But like, cheap deaths can have weight because I was talking with a veteran friend of mine about Cat's death specifically, and he said that was actually my favorite death out of all of them because when he was in combat, that's how a lot of the deaths were. It was just sudden, out of nowhere, no reason, gone.
Yeah, that's true.
Allow me to say this. I believe every single death in Reach were good deaths, if you know what I mean. Such as in Cats, it was realistic, because you can be suddenly sniped like that in any scenario.
Emil's death and Carter's death will always be my favorites.
Emil's death is my favorite.
Yeah. I'm ready!
Emil's
How about you?
I've tried to reenact that in my role plays so many goddamn times, it's not even funny.
So that's why you're always so foolishly reckless. Got it.
Yeah.
Well, now that I know that, I can build a session specifically around writing you out.
Oh boy.
I see how it is. Fine.
You know I won't do that. I'm a better DM than that. I
know.
I let you light Dwarf on fire and throw him at a boss, which is a story I share at every possible opportunity.
In fact, share it now, because I like hearing about it.
Okay.
I remember it too well.
So, for the folks on Twitter who've seen me post about this a couple of times, this is the full story. We were doing a quest which was on the website at the time. I'm not sure if it is now. I need to look into that. It's called the Arkenholm quest. The adventurers were tasked with purging an ancient evil from this temple. Our party consisted of Shal's edgy samurai alter ego. Tactical Toads was playing a physician who was an alchemist, not a mage, as I erroneously stated on Twitter.
And constantly trying to harvest parts of people's bodies to make into random potions.
Oh,
yes,
no, that
is also true. I'm pretty sure that's like he single-handedly made the alchemy system, if it's still a thing.
100%.
Yeah.
It is still a thing. It's one of the advanced mechanics. Which, speaking of, we'll talk more about advanced mechanics later. So, anyway.
Yes.
We had... Wait, it wasn't the Canadian.
No, it was...
Watermelon's first character was Chad.
No, I think Chad died and he made the Canadian.
It was definitely one of the Viking dudes. Yeah, Vahlir.
It was the Vahlir, yeah, it was this Canadian.
So it was the Canadian, okay.
Canadian?
It's Canadian.
But he had like an axe and he had
Scandinavian.
the flannel. It's a fucking Canadian.
Even Mellon said that. And then
exactly.
we had
I'm pretty sure I heard him say that.
Iron's character, which is Dwarf.
Oh boy.
I fully have to admit right now that I did it because I was kind of lazy and wanted to kind of AFK, so I could basically make an autonomous character and have it make sense.
Oh, it worked, okay?
It did work, and it was great. It was beautiful.
So what happens with Dwarf is if Dwarf sees movement, Dwarf attacks movement. So he had to have this falcon hood on at pretty much all times, unless you wanted to, yeet Dwarf across the battlefield and make him kill something. It's important to emphasize one thing here, because it's important to the story. In order to throw Dwarf correctly, you had to roll a d6, and if you failed, you took whatever damage he was about to do. Because you dropped the Dwarf or accidentally just pulled off the hood or whatever.
You brought the dwarf!
Yeah.
Tactical Dwarf incoming!
It's like a live grenade, but it's a chainsaw more than a grenade.
So
It's a grenade saw.
We're on the boss phase, which is like the phase before the final phase. And the boss is called the Extinguisher of Lights.
Yeah, I remember this.
Giant floating ball eldritch horror thing fit right in at Bloodborne. And
Mora.
its entire shtick was if there was light, it was vulnerable to damage. If there was no light, the entire party was going to get wiped.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And that has an interesting synergy with how Dwarf works.
So what would happen was, this is how the fight was supposed to go, and you guys don't actually know this.
Yeah.
How the fight's supposed to go is the party is supposed to split their efforts between distracting the extinguisher and having the other members of the party light the braziers to illuminate the room fully to allow it to take maximum damage.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't what happened.
Not one bit.
So they light exactly one brazier. And the extinguisher is coming toward them, ominously floating. And they're talking, and they have this idea to dunk Dwarf in the brazier, which is currently full of flaming oil.
Boost his damage and then throw it at the boss, yeah.
And I'm just a DM in the situation. I'm just kind of staring at my screen like, they want to what? And so I'm like, well, fuck it. And so I decided to let them roll for it. Because that's what a good DM does. Even if it's an aberrant plan, you gotta let your players
You let it fly.
And if it had failed, they would have killed Dorf instantly.
Which would have been almost as hilarious as what actually went down.
So they rolled
on this episode. Dwarf fucking dies.
They rolled a perfect 6, which in Albadyn, in Legends of Albadyn, that's the highest you can go. So perfect 6.
That's like a nat 20.
Yeah.
It's the roll. Do whatever the fuck you want to let me be. Roll.
They
exactly
dunk Dorf in the oil and quickly yeet him forward. The Extinguisher of Lights does what he does best, which is swallow the flame. He opens his mouth, closes his mouth, and then his insides get shredded and immolated simultaneously, ending the boss fight right then and there.
Yeah.
It was deeply upsetting.
And then they had to contain the flaming dwarf.
But it was hilarious. And I was impressed that they had thought of it, honestly, because I had never that was the farthest thing from my mind when I was building that encounter, is just light one of the party members on fire. It's it was one of those things, well, you didn't say I couldn't.
Yeah, like the one time
no, I didn't.
Wasn't there also a moment where we were going against a bunch of werebears or something like that?
Were-sheep.
Oh yeah,
Were-sheep, yeah.
This bit is great.
This is great. And so Typhus, which is Toad's characters,
Typhon.
Typhon, close enough. Throws Dwarf at one of them. I think we killed the other one. We killed the other one, didn't we?
Yes.
Something like that. Okay, we killed one of them, and then
mind you, they hadn't thrown Dwarf yet. That's how serious of a matter it is to throw Dwarf.
Yeah, we had thrown Dwarf right at the second one because we were all out of actions, and Typhon was the last one to go. We throw Dwarf at him. The Dwarf gets into a screaming fight with the were-sheep.
Yeah.
And Dwarf basically tells the thing to leave us alone.
No, I remember it was he screamed in a random way that just happened to sound like F off in were-sheep language.
And then the were-sheep left.
Yep, it just fucked off.
And everyone clapped.
And everyone either died laughing or clapped.
Yeah.
So how did that go for the DM side?
On the DM side, I was too busy laughing to be annoyed about it. Because, in total honesty, it went perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And I could not have thought up a better conclusion for that series of events.
It leaves. I remember you saying that. You're like, it leaves.
Yep. It just leaves. Yes, I remember it. I remember it well. It's a bit of a jaunt off the path, but that's fine. That's what podcasts are for. Podcasts are for people to have conversations.
Yeah,
For it
that's
to
a
be,
little off, but still.
if I wanted to be a newscaster, then we would have scripts, but I don't. I want it to be something that's just chill. You can enjoy listening to, you know.
We're enjoying
Yeah.
ourselves. I'm having fun. I'm having a grand time.
Hey, viewer, are you enjoying yourself?
Oh yeah,
Press the
definitely
like
enjoying.
button if you like this. Buy a Ridge wallet.
You damn well better press the like button. I need
Do you feel good about your actions to click here?
that.
Fucking better. We're no longer asking. This is a threat. Like and subscribe.
You know it. So anyhow,
Yes, silence.
Yes, silence. Alright, so what's next on the docket, Jake?
the next thing on the docket was, there was one other thing, but I can't remember it. So we'll move on to the what's next for all of our projects, because that's right, it's projects plural.
Ooh, yes.
We're moving into the next phase of things on our website. And for that,
Big news to drop out of nowhere, huh?
oh yeah, and for that, I will pass the mic to Iron to discuss the
Yes.
first inductee to the Dragon Ridge Initiative.
So I am working on a new online tabletop game. At least that's what I'm calling it. It is called The War to End All. It is set in an alternate universe where two things happened during World War One. One, every nation is significantly more nationalist than they are in our reality. Like, for example, the Zimmerman telegram does go through in this reality, War to End All, and rather than being intercepted or decoded, neither of those things happen, and even more so, Mexico accepts. So the United States enters the war, Mexico attacks them, but of course the US kicks their ass because of course they do. And how somehow this ends up with the United States becoming an empire.
You know it.
Like, yes, yummy territory. Give me more. And another difference is Britain bringing tanks to the battlefield for the first time. Rather than disguising them as tanks, wanted to make them a lot more scarier by presenting the name Landship. So there was never any like program while they were being transported to the front of calling them tanks, like a water tank or anything. So throughout the universe here, tanks are referred to as landships rather than tanks. But
Okay.
another thing is the Treaty of Versailles, mainly because of the other difference, never happens. And the war keeps going on, and therefore the war to end all. It goes until there's no more fire to blaze. And it started as a like just basically text adventure D&D of a sort, inspired by a style of DMing one of our friends used to have before Titan, before I had met Rydek or Shal's here. And the problem was for this that it was kind of just I say guy takes this much damage, you take this much damage. It was an exchange of numbers and it felt silent and empty. And I wanted it to be an exchange of bullets. I wanted it to be real mayhem, you know? And it never felt that way because of the fact that I hadn't realized how to make this feel anyway. I could be as descriptive as I wanted with words, but that kind of reached a end point at some point. But Albadyn kind of gave me a little inspiration. What if I used an Excel document and made maps, made units, and really made the combat visual? So I cooked something up and I made a little beta test and went around random Discord servers with it. It was very bare bones. There were two kinds of vehicles, your vehicle and the enemy vehicles. And what I did was I hid little fire and smoke effects on all the vehicles, and as you shot them, these effects would appear. And I would have a document on my second monitor that's logged. Like there would be a number written on all the vehicles that it helps it to stay realistic, as like you would probably see a big number for identifying a vehicle on it, you know, like 562 or 703, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
yeah, I would on this Word document, I would be logging all the health and damage, and I would just be I even had some sound effects cooked up for everything. And so when they shot something, maybe it's just about dead. It's on fire, but still trudging along. They shoot it again, and then there's a whole grandiose explosion effect. And it felt really badass to the party. And then there was this big final boss, and you actually were able to see this thing coming along. You were able to see how much bigger it was than your own vehicle and be like, oh crap, you know? It wasn't
Hmm.
just a square that's named super heavy tank or something. It's a big bad, and you're looking it in the eye, and you're the only one that can stop it. And so they take this thing out, and it feels absolutely spectacular to them. And I'm like, I think I've made something click here. I asked all of them to give a one sentence review of the experience, and they all loved it. And they were very excited to see what the full version would be, even though I doubt many of them will see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm working on now with War to End All, is to make as close as I can get to making an actual video game, pretty much. I'd say the only problem is making this mass produced because I've got my own technique to it, and exporting this to Dragon Ridge Studios is going to take some standardization. And in order to make it feel more impactful to the players, there has to be a bit of quiet on the DM side of things, you know?
The
So
DM is
I'm,
more of a judge than a
yeah,
actual event director.
yeah, I mean in sense of like the distribution of the documents for it, like the level maps and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of takes away the impact when you know every enemy that spawns in the level, which is why I'm thinking stuff like the unit codex and stuff is going to be of course there will be player versions and there will be DM versions like telling you where this appears, what abilities it has.
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
I mean that's standard for larger games.
Yeah. But this project is extremely ambitious. There are And another interesting thing to mention about this is I kind of wanted, in order to support being to the ability to go as in depth as possible and make this as cinematic, so to speak, as I can, is to make set in stone kind of stories to a degree.
Uh-huh.
So rather than a big interactive world like Albadyn or a single railway campaign like a D&D, War to End All takes kind of an in-between stance. There are individual stories. There are three per faction: an armor campaign, an air campaign, and a spec ops campaign. And because this, I believe, if I've done the math right, there are 26 stories. Actually, I have a channel for it here somewhere.
You guys keep
Let's see,
talking
where
about
is
this.
it?
I've got to be right back. I got to plug in my computer.
Alrighty.
All right.
Yes, 24 stories. And another thing that kind of inspired me was Detroit Become Human system of the story branching out to so many different endings because of small decisions, or sometimes big decisions. And
Okay.
that's another thing that inspired me. And so not only are there 24 stories, there are almost over 100 different endings planned to be possible to get.
Oh.
So a story can start in one way and it can end almost any way. It could be the worst ending where everyone dies at the end, but it's a very meaningful bad ending, and for the rest of the story up to that point, it's just like a respawn, retry kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of a tragedy of war story, so to speak. And there's also the incredibly victorious good ending where like you're triumphant over all your enemies, standing over them all, you know? And
Hmm.
there's some that are in between, like you successfully get out alive at least, or you extract something really important that you would have missed if you'd gone for some other ending.
Yeah.
And some of these are based on decisions, and others are based on actions. Like if you successfully destroy this thing within this amount of time, this event can be avoided,
Hmm.
or this event can be successfully pursued. And this encourages a lot of replayability. And another thing is, some of these endings are going to bear some fruit for the players. Any player that gets them is going to get to keep a log, And there are going to be special campaign items which have certain statistics and passive or active buffs. Like some will be a special weapon that you can take with you. Some of them will be like a suit of armor or a anti-tank gun, or even an officer's badge that lets you in one scene that I won't spoil just yet. You'll have to see it for yourself one day, of an officer ordering basically a suicidal charge, which has an extremely bad chance of going well, and just nobody is up for that. But if you have this officer badge from a completely different story, then you'll be able to present the badge, refuse the order, and instead do a stand your ground, last stand kind of thing. And so this encourages even further replayability. That's another thing I wanted. I wanted this world to be fully able to be peeked into, every little window of it. And for the most part, right now, I am working on one of the armor stories. It will be the first story available, and it is going to be wild. I would say if you want to expect what kind of things are going to be in War to End All, think, well, pretty simple, World War One, but it doesn't end. It's going to be extensions of like the rhomboid British tanks. There is yet to be anything purely fictional added to it. I'm trying to keep it mostly historical. Like, there was a German prototype that I dug for days and days to find any logs of, and I'm including that in some of the campaigns. I'd say the latest campaigns you'll see are like in 1928 or somewhere around that time. But of course, with like World War One never ending, as mentioned before. Uh, Probably the wildest it gets is in the late era campaigns. Like in 1925, there's one where the Germans produce an aerial navy of what's the word? Like armored zeppelins. And
Blips.
basically, yeah,
Yes.
flying battleships, and
Wow.
it is awesome. Like naval tactics in the sky. And there's an awesome scene towards the end of it where this absolutely godly, it's called the Blade of God, is the name of the ship. And it's kind of the center, the heart of this campaign. I would say it is the pinnacle of how insane War to End All gets. Because in the Himmelslot, or Air Navy campaign that it takes place in, oh boy, I'm spoiling stuff now, but
Uh,
it's quite good stuff, so I will go ahead and spoil it because
You
if
don't
anything
have
will get
to.
hyped for this, I would say that would. And
Mate, your
the
blood's
Blade
all
of
under me.
God, yeah. If you've ever played PlanetSide 2 in its modern form, it's kind of like a Bastion, except it is about the size of a goddamn Star Destroyer. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The
wow.
thing is armored like a fortress, armed like a dreadnought, and of course it goddamn flies.
Glorious.
So, for about a year at the time of the Himmelslot campaign, 1926, this thing has been ravaging the Western Front, and the Allies are like, Jesus Christ, we cannot do anything with this massive god of the sky just striking down our offensives one by one. And so, what they do is make their own air navy, and that's kind of the main revolving point of that story.
Mm-hmm.
And so a good campaign with this would be the Blade of God and its incredible aerial aces that the players play as manage to successfully save the Blade of God. Or another one, or a worse ending would be the Blade of God gets shot down, but goes out in a blaze of glory. And now, of course, there's a whole air navy war style of warfare going on after this campaign, which leads on to maybe future campaigns once I've made everything else, which will, oh boy, that's gonna be a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
so,
so for now,
oh, go ahead.
hmm? Oh yeah,
You finish up,
okay,
then I'll stop. Then I'll
yeah.
start.
Lastly, as for the campaign I'm working on right now, that'll be the first one available. This revolves around don't get me for being a person that's obsessed with the Germans, because this is Imperial Germany. I believe their style is very cool. It's kind of what inspired the Krieg, like stormtroopers, big tanks, that kind of stuff.
Is
And the
it
big guns and
diesel
all.
punk or is it its own
I would
unique
s-
aesthetic?
I would say diesel slash steampunk, but mostly diesel.
Diesel punk? Let me look at this.
Yeah. Diesel punk probably is as far as it gets. It doesn't get too techy at any
Well, as
point.
it's still as you're pretty much stuck in an infinite loop of war, it wouldn't really be able to evolve beyond that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean,
That's why,
Mhm.
like, even in 1926, you'll be seeing British Romboy tanks.
well, yeah, because you don't think we need a new tank, you think we need a bigger tank.
Yeah, or a better tank.
We need
And
chunky boy, not speedy boy,
speaking of
chunky boy.
chunky boys, that's actually what the campaign I'm working on revolves around. It is, I believe, 1919, and there is an area in between France and Germany called the Frey Line. This is named after a French commander from, I forget the specific conflict, but Maginot Line couldn't be reused because that commander was after World War One, I believe. And so I had to do a little bit of research to name that, but end result is the Freyline. The Freyline is absolutely massive, and there's a 5 mile wide stretch called Sector 263, which this campaign takes place on. And if you've looked really deeply into World War One or happen to watch a YouTuber named Cone of Arc, you'll probably have heard about a certain vehicle called the K-Wagon. It was a 120-ton super heavy tank with like
Oh,
4 cannons, 7 machine guns, and 30 millimeters, I believe, of armor, which was incredible for its time. Nothing short of like main caliber artillery would be able to kill that thing. And believe it or not, they actually built that thing. And not just one of them, two of them. And they were nearly done right as the war ended. And so this is like, dude, I gotta give these things some justice and let the parties see like I should introduce them to how insane War to End All is with this beast, if anything, you know?
Mhm.
And so there's a elite tanker or landship division called the Mastodon Division of the Bowden Marine or Ground Navy, as the literal translation goes, of Germany. The Macedon Division are like the big siege company of their army. And
hmm.
they, of course, being the most elite force of their entire army in terms of landship power, are given 50 of these K-Wagon tanks, and they're told break that freight line. Because the thing with the freight line is there is nothing on the Black Zone, which is that 5 mile stretch I mentioned earlier. No man's land taken to its utmost extreme. This is because the two nations fighting there, France and Germany, have both had to. There has been so much blood spilled on the freight line that in Sector 263 they took the drastic measure of placing a constant 24/7 artillery barrage on the place and only opening it up for hours at a time. No one is going to get in there to build any sort of fortification. It's just 5 miles of battered dirt and mud with all the prizes on either end of it. And so when this huge curtain opens, it is uh, like full speed bloodbath. Break through or die before the shell rain comes back down, you know?
Mhm.
And that's what this is going to revolve around. So when the campaign opens, the party will have been waiting for days, maybe weeks, with these huge rumbling, moving fortresses ready at a moment's notice to go kick ass. And then that moment comes. And it is going to be absolute madness. There are going to be French super heavies, German super heavies, steel on steel mayhem. And of
Glorious.
course, these massive 120-ton monsters are going to be getting some of their finest moments here and breaking this absolutely tidal lock. But that's going to be the campaign that happens first, I believe.
Awesome. So to
Wow.
clarify, a little bit on what Iron is talking about, um, the War to End All is the first game to fly under the banner of the Dragon Ridge Initiative. The Dragon Ridge Initiative is functionally the publishing platform that I'm creating with my website and my current reach. The Dragon Ridge Initiative will play host to multiple games. We've already got several in development that aren't ready to be talked about just yet. And they will be published on the Legends of Albadyn website under the Dragon Ridge Initiative tab. And they will be additional free-to-play games made by the people for the people.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to expand the offerings available and to make people who are struggling financially feel like they still have a seat at the tabletop. Because a lot of the games out there are really expensive. Like, really expensive. They're really cool, but they're really expensive. And I want to create options that are professionally made, that are fun, deep, and all across the gameplay spectrum. So there's always something you can play. So you never feel like, I would love to play tabletop games, but I can't afford it. So the Dragon Ridge Initiative will be going live soonish. Once Iron has this first part done, it will be the first game to join our banner. And that's something that we're really excited to be bringing to you guys.
Yes.
And with that, that's everything we've talked about. So we're going to start wrapping up here.
Yes.
I want to thank you guys for joining me for this episode of the Dragon Ridge Cast. And I want to thank you, the viewer/listener, for tuning in. It is my hope that you will like and subscribe, as well as check out legendsofalbadyn.com, which is the free-to-play tabletop dungeon crawling fantasy sensation that's taking the world by storm ever so slowly and so wonderfully. This year has been huge for us. We clocked over 5,000 views. We've clocked over 5,000 views this year alone. Bunch of subscribers, a bunch of downloads, and a bunch of people joining our Discord server. Links to our affiliate social media, which is our Discord server, our Reddit forum, our Facebook page, and the Twitter profile of Dragon Ridge Studios, will be found in the description below, so feel free to check those out. And stay tuned, because we've got a lot of really cool stuff coming.
Better warm those guns up, that's for sure.
That's for 100% for sure.
Definitely.
Now, we'll be having another one of these podcasts soonish to discuss more Albadyn-centric things, but I'm wanting to spice up the variety that we talk about, and this has been my favorite podcast to record, with the exception of the community episode that I recorded with Vino. I hope that you all have a fantastic day. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving, and I hope
I was just about to bring that up.
And I hope your holiday season is fantastic.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yep.
That's the truth. So I've said my goodbyes. I'll let the other two say their goodbyes, and then we'll end the podcast.
Hope you all have a wonderful day. Hope you had a great holiday. Peace.
Stay safe. Happy New Year. And let's keep going, shall we?
Yep. And until next we meet, may your journey continue.